This guided sleep meditation with gentle imagery is for those who feel tired beyond explanation, for minds that have carried enough, and for evenings when rest feels deserved without needing a reason. Tonight offers a place where nothing is being asked and where sleep arrives not by effort, but by permission. A place where thought is no longer urgent because it has been trusted to time. Welcome to Under Moon and Stars guided sleep meditations and sleep imagery, a quiet corner of the night created for peace, acceptance, and gentle belonging. My name is Shelley, and I'll be here with you tonight as the evening opens into an ancient library in a stone tower, a place shaped by time, silence, and long-held stillness. There's no goal here, no instruction to follow, only a soft unfolding into rest at the pace the night prefers. The long stone hallway stretches ahead, curved slightly, as if it was never meant to rush anyone forward. The walls are cool and pale, worn smooth not by use, but by patience. Their lines a steady grounding of time and experience. Footsteps sound different here. Not echoed, not sharp, but absorbed, soothed into quiet, into an existence of calm rather than attention, a drifting rather than a procession. Pools of dim amber light slip along the floor, hinting at something warm and accepting ahead. A comforting glow that draws its wards forward gently. Slowly rounding a corner, a tall, heavy doorway comes into view. Wood darkened by centuries, held by arched stone, with the strength to relieve this portal of weight and responsibility. Iron handles that have embraced hands of generations past. A threshold that has been crossed many times, always without ceremony. Beyond, the library awaits. The air at this threshold carries the faintest trace of old paper and distant fire, as though memory itself has a scent, and it's been living quietly within these walls. The heavy doors open without a sound, swaying gently on hinges that have embodied balance for longer than civilizations. Beyond, a realm of stillness and quiet, acceptance and belonging, of knowledge trusted to time. The entrance to this realm stands on a middle floor of vastness. The balcony you stand upon reveals first height, a vertical openness that lifts the breath without asking it to change. Ceilings rise into shadow, their edges softened by distance, their presence felt more than seen. Then depth is revealed. Below, row upon row of shelving, curving gently upward with the roundness of the tower, their repetition forming a landscape rather than a task. Not something to be navigated, but more of a rhythm to the space to observe. Levels ascend gradually from the main floor along inner walls, spiraling ramps and staircases, and narrow balconies climbing upward. Each floor holding its own quiet pockets of light, its own stillness. And as you stand here, experiencing this vastness above and below, your breath mirrors this, breathing into the ceilings above and down to the floors below. In and out. You breathe in deeply and then let go with a long breath. Books in quiet abundance line every surface, not demanding attention, only offering the comfort of accumulation. Their spines press close together, holding the gathered weight of centuries without strain. No single volume stands forward. Nothing competes. Knowledge is resting. Time doing the holding. The sense is not of arrival, but of being received by a place that has been ready for a long while. From this middle height, the library does not ask for direction. Movement happens slowly, almost incidentally, as though the space itself knows where rest will eventually gather. A broad stone ramp curves away from the balcony, its surface worn smooth, not by tool, but by repetition. It carries the body downward, at a pace that feels natural, uncounted. With each gentle turn, the perspective shifts just enough to reveal another face of the library, another stretch of shelving, another constellation of lamplight resting patiently among the books. Reading alcoves appear quietly, deep window seats carved into stone, cushioned in dark fabric, facing panes of glass where rain traces quiet paths downward. Long tables sit beneath hanging lamps, their surfaces clear, their chairs unoccupied, as if waiting without expectation. Nothing here signals use. Nothing insists on purpose. The air holds the faint, familiar scent of old paper and distant fire, softened, settled, as though time itself has exhaled and decided to remain. Sound is absorbed rather than echoed. Footsteps fade quickly, not swallowed but received, becoming part of the library's quiet rhythm. Somewhere nearby, there's the subtle sense of another presence, not movement, not attention, simply life at ease within the space. The black shape curled where warmth gathers most naturally, unwatchful, unconcerned, at home. The drift continues, unmarked by distance or progress, until the body finds itself slowing without instruction. A place reveals itself, not because it was chosen, but because it has been quietly waiting. A chair turned slightly toward the firelight, a low table within reach, a blanket folded with the familiarity of comfort. Nothing about this place feels claimed. Nothing feels temporary. It holds the kind of readiness that does not need to be earned. The chair receives without ceremony, its shape familiar in a way that doesn't need memory, positioned where the fire's warmth reaches without demanding attention. The fabric is dark, softened by time, holding heat steadily rather than brightly. The blanket is not placed with intention, but with the quiet understanding that evenings often arrive this way. Firelight moves across the stone in slow, patient rhythms. It does not flicker sharply. It breathes. Each shift of glow tracing the curve of shelves, the undersides of balconies, the rounded edges of books that have learned how to wait. Beyond the tall windows, rain continues its steady work. Not loud, not insistent, a distant presence that belongs to another layer of the night. Here, the storm does not need to be kept out. It just exists elsewhere. Its sounds reach the library already softened, already translated into something low and calming, as though the walls themselves understand what to allow through. The warmth gathers gradually, not rushing the cold away, not replacing it, simply sharing space with it until the contrast no longer asks to be noticed. The air carries a faint trace of wood smoke and old paper, a mingling of elements that have learned to coexist over long spans of time. Nothing here needs tending. Nothing requires participation. Nothing observes. The shelves do not lean closer. The books do not call out. Their presence is enough. A surrounding sense of accumulation, of thought laid down carefully and trusted to remain. A sea of spines and bindings that does not need to be entered to be reassuring. Knowing without effort that what matters has already been held somewhere safe. The feeling here is not of being watched or guided or evaluated, but of being unobserved in the best possible way. Free to soften without explanation, free to rest without being noticed at all. Time loosens here, melting like honey, not disappearing, not stopping, simply widening. The kind of time that allows the nerves to stand down, because nothing is arriving next. Nothing is expected. And in that widening, the subtle understanding understanding begins to settle. Not yet spoken, not yet named. The being here is already enough. The rain becomes noticeable again, only after the stillness has settled, not as sound arriving, but as something that has been happening all along. It presses softly against the tall arched windows, diffused by thick glass and thicker stone. Its rhythm, low and steady, like a world exhaling at a distance. The storm does not announce itself here. It exists as texture, as atmosphere, present but without demand. Firelight gathers nearby, not bright, not dramatic. A wide hearth set into the stone holds a slow, enduring flame, its warmth spreading outward in a way that feels patient rather than persuasive. The fire does not flicker for attention, it simply remains. Amber light pools across the floor, climbs the lower shelves, warming the spines of books that have known many such nights. Nothing here rushes to counter the cold. Warmth is offered as a constant, not a reward. Between rain and fire, the space finds its balance. Outside movement is softened into rhythm. Inside stillness is made livable by warmth. Neither competes, neither overwhelms. The storm does not need to be shut out, and the quiet does not need to be protected. Both are allowed to exist, each in their place, each doing what they have always done. Time loosens further, not because it stops, but because it no longer presses forward. The rain has fallen like this before. The fire has held the dark before. Stone, glass, paper, and flame all seem to agree on one thing. Nothing more is required of this moment. The library does not respond to the weather. It simply continues, steady, unconcerned, intact. And within that continuation, something settles naturally. A sense of being gathered rather than sheltered. being held without being watched, of rest arriving not as collapse, but as quiet permission. At some point, without announcement, a small presence registers at the edge of the space, not arriving, not approaching, simply there. A cat moves along one of the lower shelves, its shape briefly outlined by firelight before it passes beyond it. No sound but the soft certainty of motion. No pause for acknowledgement. It does not linger. It does not stay close. It continues on, as if this place already knows it well, as if it has passed through many nights like this one, and will pass through many more. The sense it leaves behind is not companionship in the social sense, but continuity, proof that the space is lived in, yet unconcerned with being noticed. Nothing here watches, nothing waits. The library does not respond to presence or absence. It allows both equally. And within that allowance, solitude becomes gentle rather than sharp. You are alone without being isolated, unobserved, yet not untethered. The quiet does not close in, it opens, wide enough to rest inside without needing to be filled. In a place like this, presence does not need to justify itself. The library has held centuries of nights, countless pauses, innumerable moments when nothing was accomplished except being here. This moment joins them without distinction. You are not separate from the rhythm of the space. You are another quiet interval added to its long memory. Another breath taken while the shelves remain steady. Another evening passing safely without being marked or measured. Nothing about this moment needs to stand out. Nothing needs to be remembered. And still, it belongs. The way the rain belongs to stone, the way fire belongs to dark, the way stillness belongs to time. Mattering here is not earned or announced. It is simply assumed, woven into the continuation of things that endure without effort. You are not being held apart. You are being held within. Here, thinking is no longer urgent, not because it has been solved and not because it has been silenced, but because it has been entrusted. The shelves have already taken on the labor of remembering. The questions have somewhere to rest. The answers are being held on your behalf, layered into paper and ink, into spines that repeat and repeat, not as demand, but as continuity. The weight you feel in this place is not the weight of effort. It is the weight of shelves, oak and stone, bearing centuries without strain. The gravity that belongs to architecture, not to you. Body is not being asked to carry anything forward. It is simply present within a structure that has already decided how to stand. The rows of books that curve gently with the tower, their repetition forming depth rather than direction. There's no beginning point that needs to be found, no end that needs to be reached. This is not a task laid out in front of you. It is a sea, wide, patient, unconcerned with progress. A landscape, not a resource. Nothing here asks to be understood tonight. The accumulation itself is enough. Centuries gathered quietly, without announcement. Knowledge resting where it was placed, content to remain held rather than used. The mind senses this and begins to loosen its grip, not out of exhaustion but out of trust. There is relief in knowing that nothing needs to be processed now. That understanding has been deferred to time, and time has accepted the responsibility. This library exists alongside the world, not against it. It does not shelter you from anything, because it does not participate, and neither do you while you're here. Storms do not arrive here. Demands do not echo. Urgency does not cross the threshold. This place simply continues, steady and uninterested in momentum. And within that non-participation, safety emerges effortlessly. You are not being observed, not evaluated. You are allowed to be here without leaving an impression. another quiet presence, added briefly to the long rhythm of stillness, no more significant than any other, and no less welcome. There is permission in that anonymity, permission to let the mind rest without fear of being left behind, permission to pause, permission to exist without consequence. The library does not need anything from you, and because of that, you are free to soften, free to drift, free to be left alone, kindly, completely, and without explanation. From this quiet belonging, awareness begins to soften. The firelight behind closed eyelids fades to a gentle, undemanding glow, warm and familiar, like it has always been there. The rain against the tall windows becomes a distant rhythm, indistinct, almost as if it were a memory rather than a sound, moving in time with the space itself rather than commanding notice. The library continues around you, patient and steady, whether observed or not. Light pools shift slowly across the floors and balconies. Spiral ramps hold their curves without expectation. The spines of books remain aligned, centuries of accumulation lying undisturbed. There's no requirement to do anything here. No thought is needed. No task lingers. Only the quiet pulse of the place, a rhythm older than memory, older than obligation, carrying you gently. Your body rests where it has been received. The warmth of the fire and the enveloping stillness of stone and paper, creating a subtle support around you. Presence itself is enough. Breathing slows, breath deepens, muscles uncoil without thought. Mind loosens its grip on time. You are held. You are allowed. You are entirely permitted to drift without plan, without consequence, without urgency. The library and the storm and the hours do not ask for attention. They simply exist, offering a space in which the self can dissolve into rest. And so, little by little, the conscious edges of wakefulness give way. The mind softens. The body yields. And the night carries you onward. There's nowhere to go, nothing to do, only the gentle, patient unfolding into sleep, where you are included, you are safe, and you are wholly enough. I wish you well, my friend. I wish you peace. And I'm glad you're